right. Let's do this. Okay, so I've got a little agenda here. We're going to start off with Gantt view. I feel like script settings was less interesting than new triggers and actions. So I'm going to go ahead and pop in new triggers and actions as number 2. Remote fetch was asked on Twitter, but I don't see any interest. Regular expressions was up there. So let's start with something easy. We'll start with Gantt view, then do some regular expressions, and then new triggers and actions, remote fetch, things like that. How about that? Does that sound about right? Let me know if reprioritizing that. So first, Gantt view. And I'll start by saying, maybe you guys don't have this discussion on your end. I'm always thinking of like, what is a view, right? A lot of apps could be views, and I think Gantt is one of those. So if anyone, let me know in the chat if you're familiar with what a Gantt is. Maybe I should start there. So let me know, like, if you use Gantts in general, if you've used them in Airtable. I personally was not a fan of Gantts before I started using Airtable, and I think the fact that they were kind of holed into an app made it so that I don't use them as much as I wanted to. But now that they're a view, I use them actually all the time. So I've had this feature a little bit, and I've had to, the ability to play around with a view. So there's kind of actually 2 changes here. Not only is Gantt a view now, it's actually much more powerful. So Diane, familiar with them, but don't use them. Hopefully this will kind of show you how easy they are to set up and how useful they can be. All right. Yeah. So Colleen as well, kind of aware, but not using. So that's great. Okay. So Gantt is a horizontal timeline of your project. So let's imagine we have we're going to start from scratch, as we often do on the stream. Let's say we have like a project, let's say we're creating a series for, a specific event or whatever. Let's call it, I'll give them placeholders, project 1, project 2, project 3. And let's imagine each one of these have tasks. Actually, I shouldn't do, let's give an actual project. Let's give, redesign YouTube homepage, right? That feels about right. Let's say like we're like content creators, and then after that it's set up home studio. You can see what's been on my mind recently with the examples that I'm using, right? And then let's say third, standardize video assets, right? Okay, so at the project level, it's not really relevant, right? So like when I think of projects, yeah, there's a bunch of information like who's assigned to that project, but really I think where the work kind of happens is in the action items. So let's imagine we're creating a new table where we're going to link all of our action items to our projects. So I'm going to call this new table action items. And then let's kind of create action items related to each one of our projects. So project number 1 will be redesign YouTube homepage. We need, new asset creation, decide on layouts. I should really call on you all to figure out better examples that are more relevant. So if you have one, let me know in the chat and I'm happy to use it. So decide on layouts. Let's go, restructure playlists. And let's imagine that each one of these takes a week, right? But to be able to decide on layouts, we need to have the new assets and to understand the playlists. Actually, it would be like this, right? So like I need to restructure the playlist before I decide on layouts, and then new asset creation comes before both of those, right? So that's project number 1. No, these should all be part of redesign YouTube homepage. I linked the wrong one. There you go. Okay. So let's then say like, okay, what are the action items for home studio? So it's the, decide on the look. That's step 1 on the home studio front. and then, figure out, oh, Matthew, long time no see. It's been a while. I'm happy you're here. Matthew is going to be, Matthew is from Webflow, and he is an automation master, but he's mainly here to debug regex with us because he is a regular expression professional. So if you have questions about regular expressions, you can go to Matthew. There you go. Okay, so we want to figure out what our layout, what equipment we need. Set up home studio. Step 3 is actually buy equipment. So I'm just going to give these each 3 tasks. No, Matthew, don't underestimate yourself. You are here in this stream, the regular expression king. And standardized video assets, right? So these are just projects, right? And we're just creating, tasks. I'll just give these task 1, task 2, task 3. Task 2. Let's give this one more, task 3. Right, so relatively simple stuff. And you can imagine a much more complex world where we're managing a bunch of things, a bunch of dependencies, and let's kind of give ourselves a calendar, right? So let's just start saying, like, when do we want to start? So start date, and then end date. And I'm just going to kind of imagine we start every Monday, end this on the Friday. And I'm just going to do a few, and then we can schedule a few others in the Gantt itself. So let's do, this one's going to take a week and a half. That one's going to take an extra week. Let's do one more project. Let's say this one starts in May. This is the boring stuff, right? This is all stuff you're all familiar with. Boom. Let's give this back to June. Okay, cool. So essentially this we can turn into a calendar. Let's give this an end date. Done. In this is okay, right? So I can see each one of my tasks when they start. I see the ones that, are unorganized. It's great, but it doesn't kind of give me overlap. I can't see how one kind of interacts with the other. I can't see it on when am I going to end. I'm looking at this on a time frame. And so this kind of staggering of a calendar isn't always ideal. And really that's when Gantt comes in. So Gantt lets you horizontally view all of your information and all of those tasks, right? And let's kind of look at this. So I'm going to call this all projects, a little Gantt view. And if you're familiar, it used to live here. So before you had to go into the app and add a Gantt, which was very, very kind of annoying. Now you can just access it, and let's kind of play around with this. So first, we'd like this to be organized by project, right? So right now we're just seeing each task. We have a start date and an end date. But the first thing is I want to organize this by project. Maybe I want to filter down or kind of set this up differently. Let's go into settings here. So start field is start date, and then end field is end date. We're giving this a medium size. You can do short if you have a ton of action items. I'm labeling this as name, and then we'll explore milestones in a bit. This feels about right. The first thing is I want to see these organized by the project I'm working on. So if you're familiar with views, you're actually reusing similar functionality to what you had before. I can group this by project. So now I can see my redesigned YouTube homepage and my setup home studio as projects on my timeline. And what's great about it is kind of adjusts. So let's say I'm actually going to say, okay, this is going to take an extra day. I can move this around, and I can move this around. And then when I collapse, you see that it adapts to say, this is the timeline of your project. So you know, how I like to view projects is like they roll up on all the tasks. And one of the questions I get all the time is like, well, how do I adjust the length of my project based on changes in the underlying action items? Well, in this situation, it actually adjusts for you. So I can see that this is a 46-day project because I've broken down all of these tasks, right? And I can see that there's some overlap. So we can do the same thing here. Let's say, you know what, there shouldn't be any gaps. Boom, I can move around. Other new functionality for folks who have used Gantt, you can now hide weekends, right? So this shows you the time without weekends, which just gives you a broader overview. As someone who now works out of Gantt, that's actually like a very important feature. Let's go ahead and kind of give these a status, right? So right now, maybe move this one here. Actually, let's imagine this one was done. Move this one here, move it like that. Let's move these back so the projects aren't so kind of spaced apart. And what's great is you can see I can just move things around directly on the Gantt without actually having to click in and change the information. And it's two ways. So if I change anything here, it adapts on the actual Gantt, but I can also change things right here. So both are reflected. So this Gantt is always up to date with your information. So I was going to go and add a status field. So status. Can I do subgroups? Tell me a little more about what you mean, Matthew. So can I group by 2 fields? Is that what you're saying? So like show me tasks by project and then by status. Is that what you mean? So let's call this next up, doing, done. Yeah, it's a good question. Let me check. I am at work, I am a Gantt follower. I am not a Gantt creator, but as an educator, now I'm a Gantt creator. So I'm excited to figure out if you can do that. So let's give these a status and we could see if we can group by status. Actually, status is probably not what we want to group by. That feels more like a coloring functionality. So let's see if we can group by, okay, let's see if we can. I feel like we can. So let's group. So first you can color by status, right? So you can visually see what each status is in. So let's give these a little better color. Customize field type. Next up feels like yellow, doing should be blue, and done is green. There we go. So this one should be done because it's in the past. Doing, and this one should be next up. Boom. Okay. So we can see that the colors are reflected. Now your question, Matthew, is can we then group by status? So we can. Right? So then it reorganizes each kind of these horizontal times. So if we had 3 tasks that are next up, this isn't the most ideal. Let's actually imagine a different way of seeing this, which would be assignee. I'm going to do it as a single select because I don't have any collaborators. So let's say Matthew is doing some of the tasks. I'm doing the others. Save, right? And let's give Matthew a few tasks here. Let's give him a cross project. Then I get a few here as well. So intuitively, what I would prefer is actually instead of grouping first by project, I would group first by assignee, who's responsible for it, and then by project. Right? So if I'm looking at this and I can even filter down, so I can look at Matthew and see by project what Matthew should be working on and then what I should be working on. Right? You can imagine kind of multi-groupings like that. So hopefully, Matthew, that answers your question. So yes, you can group. This isn't probably the best way you would group, right? Because it feels a little weird to have it kind of segmented in this way, but you can do it. So appreciate the question. Okay, let's ungroup by this. And let's group by project. Awesome. Okay, so we have our first project, our second project. There's a few more things I want to show you for Gantt. So first is this question of dependency. So for me to be able to restructure playlist, I need to first, so for me to decide on layouts, I need to restructure the playlists first, right? So a few things in the chat. So yeah, totally. So you can, that's a good point, Matthew. Actually, I should have thought of this. Like you can have a Gantt of all the projects and all of their timelines by department, for instance, right? So you can roll up that information. So you can see blocks like department 1, department 2, and have that Gantt, each one, next to the other. So you can get a sense of where things should be in the project. So yeah, so Gantt, I'm a convert to Gantt now, I gotta say. And especially because of what I'm going to show you in here in just a moment, which is dependency. So let's imagine that for me to decide on layouts, I need to first restructure playlists, right? So this decide on layouts depends on this. So if this gets pushed, I know that decide on layouts needs to be pushed, right? So there's, they can't overlap because I can't do both, and I can't I can't do this, right? Because there's no way I can restructure decide on layouts if I haven't yet restructured playlist. So I know that there needs to be a gap between the two, but what I'd love is to say that this depends on this. So to do that, let's go into settings. We're going to create a dependency field, right? So a dependency field says that are there predecessors, things that need to happen before you can tackle the task, or you can do the linked record as a successor. This has to happen before the next one. So you can kind of define it however you want. Frankly, I usually just pick one and then figure out how to do it. So let's imagine that this one, I'm clicking on decide on layouts. So predecessor, so I'm saying that this needs to happen before this. So I'm on decide on layouts. There's kind of two ways I can go. I can go backwards or I can go forwards to say this other task depends on decide on layouts, or decide on layouts needs to have this predecessor to be completed before I can do decide on layouts. So I'm going to link to restructure playlists. So this is saying that I need to do this before I do that. And this has a few implications. So if I say this is going to take more time, it's going to crash the app. So I'm going to report this to the team, but I'm sure it still worked in the underlying. That didn't happen. No one saw that. There you go. So you'll see that we pushed this out and this created a dependency. So no one saw that, right? This was good. It worked. I'm actually afraid to move it again. Let me actually just change the date. It should move out. Okay. So interesting. There's another thing. If I change it here, it doesn't move this thing. So it's a new view. We're still going to provide feedback to the team. Nothing happened. But another thing is if I move this back, it'll stay here, right? So I have to manually move it. And you could then create dependencies. Okay, that one worked. That one was what we want. Cool. And you could do these in the app as well. So let's say I want to create, say this needs to come before that. I can link those two and create that dependency. So when I move this out, this one adjusts. Same thing here. And I'm saying, okay, this is a predecessor to that. I create that dependency. And now I can have visually what needs to depend on what. But you could also, it doesn't have to be the next one, right? I can just say, okay, this needs to happen, right? So I can do multiple things. So for this to happen, you first need to do this and you need to do that. And I could remove predecessors right this, right? So let me know any questions about Gantt. Unless they're about the crashing of the view. That's not on me. I'll ask it differently. Do folks feel like you could use the Gantt view, or will you use the Gantt view? Yeah, I agree. I think it's one of those things that you need to explore. You need to find a good use case for. You do need to structure your bases or your tables properly. So you need a start date and an end date. And personally, I've found Gantt to be extremely useful, especially on more complex project, larger team, a lot of dependencies. I create a personal Gantt. See you, Matthew. Good to come. I'll see you next time. And so Gantt, last thing I will show, and I'll leave this to you guys, you can do milestones. So if you have a record with only end dates, you can use a milestone, which will kind of give you a little little diamond that tells you that you've achieved a milestone at a specific date. Cool. Okay. So I feel like we've covered Gantt app. Oh, Matthew, you can't leave. We're doing regular expressions. All right. Cool. Okay, next, regular expressions. So maybe I'll start with Penny's question, I think it was at the beginning, which is, when would you use a regular expression? So regular expressions are a way to extract text, format text, find text. And you've had ways of, kind of working with text, right? So if we go into this base, this is where I manage the stream. It's going to be a little meta here today, but that's okay. I have my all streams view where I've got, when the stream is happening, video description, all that good stuff. And I have a lot of text in here, and I have URLs, right? So one thing that's hard about URLs is that maybe you structure them as twitch.tv/Airtable TV, or you don't include the www dot, you don't create the https // A phone number is another example, right? A phone number is just text. It's a bunch of numbers that can be formatted in hundreds of ways. And so a lot of times you need to say, okay, well, is this formatted properly? So when you think of a phone number, you have to think, does it have 7 or 10 numbers? Does it have an area code? Can we extract a bunch of different items in that phone number to be able to have it in a standardized way? Now, in Airtable formulas, you've had things like find. So let's kind of imagine. Let's do a phone number. Let's do a phone number as an example. Let me actually start a new table here, which is phone, or just regex, and I'll delete it later. So let's imagine I have a single line text. I'm going to call it phone number. So my phone number might be, 444-555-6666. Or I might write 444-555-6666. Those two are both valid phone numbers, but they're very different from, a machine. So, right, if I'm trying to format this, or if I'm trying to validate this, and I'm saying validation, it's really hard for me with existing formulas to say whether it's a valid phone number, because I can go length, like how long is that phone number, and my goal is to have it at 10. And this one's valid, but this one has other characters, but it's still a valid phone number. So because text, in the way that it's been done before, the way formula field allows you to do it today, is very binary. It's either says, what is the length? Does it include this information? Regex, regular expression, or regex, lets you kind of have that continuum. Lets you say, does this have 10 numbers in it according to this format, and then export it in this way. Give me everything after the first slash, if that slash is there, otherwise do that. So I'm honestly not going to sit here and say that I'm a regular expression professional or that I'm really good at it. Honestly, I mostly Google, and Matthew left, and he is the regular expression person I was going to lean on. But we can still kind of explore using Google and just kind of pattern matching how we could use regular expressions. So let's look at this phone number. It's a simple one because I know that in Airtable help, there's that kind of example. So this will actually, if a incorrect phone number or someone provides you a phone number in different formats, will format it in a way that is consistent, right? So this is the formula. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say we can do this formula. What I can sit here and say is that you can now use this in Airtable. So regex, if you want to learn it, that's great. Enjoy, have fun. But in most cases, you're going to want to kind of just copy, find on the internet what's available. So this is saying, here's every permutation of things that can go wrong in a phone number. And we're going to go ahead and replace it with a standardized, normalized phone number. So let's test this out. So here, this should just be the phone number. We're just replacing, there we go. I think I need, oh, this doesn't replace though. I think this should be regex replace. Oh no. Okay, let's do another one. I'm not going to do this one. This is another one. I'll do another one for you that I tried out before. Let's extract everything to the right of this URL. So this is my YouTube link, and I want everything after that V equals, because that's the identifier of the YouTube video. So let's go URL here, YouTube URL. Boom. And what we want is everything to the right. So one way you could actually do this, I think, is with a mix of find and right. So you could find the equal using formula. Let's try it out. I don't know if y'all have the patience. So let's give it a try. So let's go formula. So let's go find identifier. We're going to create a formula, and we're going to say find the equal in YouTube URL, and start from the base position, right? So that's telling us that it's at position 32, and I want everything to the right of that, right? So I want the length of the string minus the position, and I would want the right starting there. So I want the right. So let's actually find how many. So length string. That's the length of the whole string. And, oh, actually I need another length, right? So I need to find the equal. Let's try this out. Length of YouTube URL. So I think this is a good example of why regex is much, much simpler. So we're saying that this is 11. Right. So we're saying the whole length is Y, and then 11. So it's always 11. So we can just say the right, give me the right of this. The last 11 strings. Oh, can I do right? Oh no, I need to specify which string. So it's gonna be YouTube URL. Boom. Save. Okay, so that gives me the identifier, right? So this is quite complex, or feels quite complex. So you can imagine, these lengthy formula fields. So how you can do the same thing with regex. So some people might find this easier, some people might not. Is I found this regex match everything after a question mark. And the answer is right here. So we're saying find the question mark and then give me everything after. That's how I'm understanding this regular expression. So what we can do is actually just find the equal. So I did it here. Right here. So we're saying find equal and then give me everything after. So if we move this over to here, so find identifier with regex, formula field, boom. And then instead of link, what we want is YouTube URL. So it gives you the same output, but it's it's simpler in some sense. It's a much simpler formula to understand. And there's a lot of documentation online around regex. So another example is formatting URLs, prettifying URLs, any kind of standardization or sanitization that you need to do for your information. Usually you can find a regex or regular expression to do it. And then now you can leverage those in Airtable. Again, not an expert. Definitely don't think anyone else needs to be an expert. But very useful when you are trying to do complex operations on text. So Penny, does that answer both your question of when to use regex and somewhat how to use regex? I'm going to assume it's a yes. Anyone want us to kind of do some more regex, or should we go over to new triggers and actions? Oh, awesome. So tell me, Veronica, did you have a more specific ask? I'm happy to do some regular expressions on live. Oh, is that me? Is my Wi-Fi a little iffy, or is that on your end, Penny? Let me know if my Wi-Fi is a little iffy. I've been having some issues. Huh. Okay, Veronica, I think that's doable. Now note that you can also if it's just auto number and date and you want to create something unique, you don't actually need to use regex for that. Here, let's just do it. I'll give you another. So let's say auto number. And this could be like a random number, or you could just do Airtable auto number. And then date. So let's give this like a due date or whatever. Oh yeah. Let's do that. Let's do it. This is not anything new in Airtable, but I don't think you need regex for that. So let's create an invoice number, invoice ID. It's gonna be a formula field, and let's call this. You called it project name. Let's give it a project name. Project name. project 1, project 2, project 3. All right, let's create an invoice ID. I think you're overthinking it, so let's just do it. I'm calling it invoice ID, and let's just say auto number. And like you can just concatenate the strings. And in the date, you can do date time format to say something like take the date and then format it as you have day. Let me actually go into format it properly. Date and time functions, specifiers. Right, so you want the day of the month, which is a big D. So big D. And then you wanted a dash. I think this should work. I think you can just give it a dash. And then 2021, which would be year. And you want the whole year, so Y. And yeah, project name. Oh, that was the month. You wanted month here. Is that a Y? Month. Yeah, cardinal number. Perfect. Close that. That specifies the format. And you want a project name. Project name. What did I call it? Oh, I forgot the ampersand. Project name. I don't know why I moved it there. Boom. So this isn't. There you go. Project 1, project 2. And yeah, I'll copy paste this in the chat. You can reuse this. So really just format this however you want. You can even, I think, add some zeros or after. It looks much more professional, I've heard, if you're not invoice number 1. You don't want to send anyone like, you are my 8th invoice. So give it some zeros, right? Like some random digits like that. There you go. Anytime. Now, if someone sent you this, right? If someone's sending you invoice ID, and you need to like do some pretty complex formatting on it to be able to extract information, well, there I think regex or regex might be more appropriate. But in this case, like if it's just concatenating, you can just use regular formats. And I guess this adds another kind of tree in the branch of like decisions in formulas. Should I use concatenate, find, or do I need to search the web for regular expressions? And the only way you can know the difference between the two is really just play around in Airtable. So cool. Okay. Where were we before that? So some folks trigger in actions. Cool. Okay. So let's jump to new triggers and actions. So, yeah, let's imagine. So what are they? Start there. What are the new triggers and actions in Airtable? So, maybe even start a level higher. What is Airtable automation? So Airtable automations lets you create custom trigger action sequences on top of your Airtable base to really have your business logic in Airtable to do things like when a new record is created, send an email, when an action item is past due, let the collaborator know that they have to action that action item. And, you know, we're always kind of releasing new triggers and actions, and they actually don't, like, we don't publicize them that much. I always keep an eye on them. So let's imagine with the new triggers, I want to create a workflow where every morning I receive every action item that is either assigned to me. How about we do assigned to me, right? So like just send me every action item that's assigned to me. And we can even, if we have time, do something like send me every action item that is due today, regardless of who it's assigned to. So those are some examples of what you can do. And the difference is that now you can actually use Airtable automations to not only kind of get one record when it changes, but have a set of records according to specific criteria. If that was nebulous or unclear, let me jump into the automation and explain how it works. So let's imagine I want a daily tasks assigned to me email. Okay, so a few things here. Daily tasks, so we need to run this every day. Assigned to me means that the record's been assigned to me, and email is what I wanted to do. So choose a trigger. Triggers are what set your automation in motion. They're kind of what needs to happen for your automation to happen, right? So you have when record matches conditions, which is, when when a task is in progress or past due or something like that. In our case, we want to do at a scheduled time. We want to say every morning at a specified time, do this automation, run this automation to find all of the tasks that are assigned to me. So at scheduled time, I want to do on days of the week, every week. Let's say I want to do it at 8 a.m. That feels right. Run tests. It's just going to say, okay, this is going to work. Click done. So now we're setting a schedule 8 a.m. What we wanted to do is find tasks or action items assigned to me. Now I actually need to create an assigned to me kind of functionality. So let's do that. Well, a field. So assigned to. I believe I'm the only person who's on this base. Yeah, it's just me. Okay, well, I'll just assign a few. It's okay if anyone else, MT is not assigned to me, right? So now I have 3 action items. Figure out what equipment, decide on layouts, new asset creation. So I want to find records. So this is another one of those. So the first trigger is new, and this trigger is new, and we're saying find records that match certain criteria. So Veronica, you can use Gmail. So that one will come from your email. So if you use action item send from Gmail, that comes from you. Only the send email from Airtable. So we can try it out. In just a moment. So we want to find records. So find these 3 records. So this is the new action that kind of was just released, which is saying, okay, well, add a scheduled time, and you don't have to use that trigger with this action. This is just an example. Find records. So you can then specify which table you want to find records in. I want to go to the action items table, and I want to find that every record where assignee. Oh wait, that was the one before. Assigned to is myself, right? So I've just assigned myself, find all of those records. You can also make this dynamic, right? So you can, let's say a new record triggers information that has a collaborator field in it. And then you want to see, okay, show me every other record that is assigned to that same person. Or when a project is put in progress, you want to then find every action item related to that project to do whatever. I don't know, send yourself an email, send a Slack message. Just, let's run a test. So it should find these 3 records. So it ran successfully. And we could see that we have these 3 records. So new asset creation, decide on layouts, and figure out what equipment we need. So those are the primary fields. So it outputs an array of every single kind of record that matches these conditions. Done. And okay, so you wanted to send an email, right? Let's imagine we want to send an email with that information. I think this is my Gmail account. This is on me. See, I am bad at naming fields, figuring out examples and naming things. Like why, I don't know which Gmail account this is, but let's assume it's the good one, the right one. All right, tasks or action items assigned to you. And I can say, hey, Aron, this is Aron. I know that's weird, but here are your tasks. Right, so by clicking the plus button, we're saying, okay, go get the information from previous steps. We want to go into records from step 2. We want to go into the records array. And then what's cool is we have this functionality. We can send out the array into record ID. So I can get an array of record ID. I can get an array of URLs. But what's more fun is I can send them as a list. So insert record as list. And I want, let's say, name, start, end date, status. Sure. Insert that, right? And it's going to render as an HTML list. So what we hope is that this will actually kind of give you that good looking email when you get into Gmail. Okay? So question from where do you set up that integration? So when you first kind of add Gmail action the first time, you can manage connected accounts or connect a new account, and that'll give you the option to connect your email. Cool. So I'm just going to run a test. That way I'm going to figure out if it's the right Gmail account. And also I'm not going to wait till 6 a.m. tomorrow for this automation to run. So let me just jump into my, my email. I'm just going to hide you guys just for a second while I go into my email. All right, and I've got that email open. Let me show you what that looks like. And here we go. So we've got that table. So here are your tasks. Task number 1, asset creation, start date, end date, status, name, blah, blah, blah. I have my 3 action items that are assigned to me as a grid. So this kind of, these different triggers and actions together enable this kind of email use case. And they actually open up a lot more. But I think this one's really interesting where you can say, okay, well, when this happens, send that team not only kind of information about what's triggered, but more generally go and get these other records, like get these 8 records or 10 records or 20 records. And you could send that yourself as an email. You can create linked records, right? So this is a array of, if we come here, it's an array of primary fields. So if you were to create I think if you were to create a create record action, you can input this array of records to create new action items and things like that. So really this opens up a ton of functionality. And those are the ones I wanted to show you. Did we want to do the, is it today or not? We could try that. So let's imagine, I don't think I could do it. So what if I have a formula field? Let's just try it out. Let's see if we can do it. No promises on this one. So is it today? I don't know if formula field is an option today. Let's just do this. Okay, let's test again. Let's remove this. Let's add a condition. And let's see if formula, is it today? Okay, so I can input a value today. So let's test again. Okay, so it does work. Great. Okay, let's do that again. So we're saying is, the due date, or are we near the end date? Let's say, are we within 7 days of the end date? And if that's the case, if we're either 7 days from or we're past, I'm like making this much harder than it needs to be. So two conditions. One, it's assigned to me. And second, is the due date soon? Right? That's going to be our condition to trigger. So let's imagine, is the due date soon? So we're going to say if so let's calculate this step by step. So let's do datetime diff, which is going to give us the time between today and the due date, end date, right? In days. Okay, so this one's 13 days away. And let's say, okay, these are all in the past. Oh no, are they in the future? Okay, I messed those up. I did it the wrong way. So it's the difference between end date and today. Okay, so this one's past, but it's done. So we're okay with that, right? So this one, let's move this one within 7 days. And let's move this one within 7 days as well, right? So let's imagine that both of those are due within 7 days, and they're both assigned to me. And what I want is these two. So we're saying, if the datetime diff is less than 7 days, less or equal, no, let's just do less than 7 days. That's fine. We're going to call this soon, or else we're going to call it not soon. Oh, because I did less than 7 days. Less or equal. How do you do less or equal in Airtable? Like this. Okay, got it. So these two are soon, and so is this one, but this one's done. So we're not going to include it into our automation. We want to send these two as our action items in our daily email. Yeah, talk to you soon, Veronica. Anytime. I'll move these into the day starting next week. So what we're doing here is we're saying, okay, well, go into automations, and we're going to change. So where status is not done, and where is the due date soon is soon, right? So that should give us these two, which are saying the status is not done and the due date is approaching. Let's test that again. And then I have my two records, right? So then if I retest this and I go into my email, let me hide this for a second here. Let's go into my email. Hiding is good because if it didn't work, I can hide it. And then I have my two tasks. Decide on layouts, restructure playlists. So I can be more granular and I can include formulas in my conditions as well. So that actually opens up a bunch of other functionality. You can even say, send me tasks that are today, send me tasks that are tomorrow, or send me things due in the next couple of weeks. Every time a phone number is submitted in the morning, send me every phone number that is improperly structured according to a regex formula. So yeah, what I hope you kind of leave here with is that, this find records action is different, and it's kind of unique in the sense of it returns an array, which is an array of records. And so this opens up a bunch of functionality that wasn't available before. I think that's those are the new scheduled time, right? So you can decide when to trigger automations, find records, and send email. This one isn't new, but I thought it completed it nicely. So yeah, let me know if we feel comfortable going to, which one is the next one? Any questions? Yeah, happy to answer any question. Thanks, Veronica, for jumping in. Oh, Colleen. Good question. Yeah, let's do it. Boom. And Colleen, with the new functionality, you should be able to do confetti. Or it's success. I wrote the wrong thing. So check this out. Success should work. Boom. There we go. Confetti. But see, if you just drop a bunch of emojis in the chat, if I've set this up correctly, you can now do your own confetti. I am not the sole confetti dropper, I guess. You all now have power to drop confetti or any other emoji that you so desire. So you can do Doritos if that's your thing. So, okay, cool. Let's go into our next one, new trigger, script settings. Okay, not script settings. I should call this script marketplace, of which script settings is a functionality. Cool. Okay, so we were talking about apps or Gantt view, right? We haven't been talking about apps, but I think in September last year, or before that, I think in June maybe, we launched Airtable scripting, which lets you write custom JavaScript on top of your Airtable base. And there's a Learn Airtable Scripting series that I did, and that's actually how I learned how to write scripts. But it's a little annoying to have to write scripts from scratch all the time, and a lot of people write scripts, so why not share those scripts in an easy way? So if you go into the apps marketplace, add an app, you can see apps by Airtable, all apps, and there's this new scripts tag which have kind of scripts that you can reuse. So for instance, list all invalid emails for a field, add images from Google Maps, create junction table, probably one of the more important and useful ones. And you can reuse them. So the one we're going to do is YouTube Analytics. Imagine that you want to import your YouTube Analytics into Airtable. Requires a lot of code. So I'm going to go ahead and add the script. I already actually have it here in Analytics, and we're going to run it together. And I'm going to undo my, I'm going to have to change my script key after this. So you install it, and then it gives you settings. So these script settings are what you need to configure to be able to run the script. So you input your API key. I'm saying go to stream and content. Field containing YouTube links. If you go into here, I have my, it's a little narrow here. Let me make this a little bit better. I have my YouTube link. So after I upload a stream, I have the link. That's one of the elements, one of the variables, parameters, if you will, of the script. And then pick in which to store the statistic. That is, what value from the API do I want to pull out? So let's add, I want to views. Views kind of make sense. And then I'm going to have this as a single line text because I know, that is the output of the API. I'm going to bring this closer to the URL just so we can have it one next to the other. like that. And then pick a field in which to store the statistic. We said views. Boom. And then video, I'm going to kind of video statistic. So let's go into right here. This is the API documentation of Google, which I thought was going to be intuitive, but is not. So it returns the following JSON structure. So what we want is views. So let's go into views, view count. And this is part of statistics. So what we want is statistics dot view count. So coming here, we're going to say statistics dot view count. And I think that's the right camel case. It is. There you go. So we just configure this. And if we run it, it gives us our view count. Right? So for every single video, so some of these are private and some of these are not properly structured URLs, but we get our view count. So this is an example. Like I didn't write any code. This is just structured such that you can reuse this code through the script settings, right? So this right here, let settings equal, is what allows us to, it's that first kind of element we see when we get to the script. And it gives us all this cool information and you just reuse the script. So there's a bunch of them and all you need to do is configure them. Cool. Well, I'll see you next week, Penny. Sorry about your Wi-Fi. And I think this will be the last thing I show anyway. So, yeah. So what I encourage you to do is two things. One is check out the script marketplace, right? So convert URLs to attachment, find and replace, shift scheduler, update single select, table optimizer. And if you do find a script that you think is super useful, whether it's one that you created, one that you find on the community or elsewhere, yeah, share it with us. Share it with me and we can see if we can add it to the marketplace. It is super useful for me. Like I didn't know we had to import YouTube analytics till before this stream. And I thought that was perfect. I need that. And I definitely don't know how to write this script. And so it was perfect to be able to use it. So yeah, do encourage you to check this out and add to it if you can. Cool. I think that's it. I think that's what I wanted to show you for today. Script Marketplace. Boom. Gonna add a little check mark there. Boom, boom, boom. All right. So those are the things I wanted to show you. We can do a success. Or y'all can drop a bunch of React emojis in the chat and they'll show up on the stream. But yeah, that's what I wanted to show you for this week. It's not, everything that Airtable launched recently. If you go to airtable.com/what's new, you have lookup field support, which we didn't do, attachment annotation, script settings, Google Sheets importer, a bunch of stuff that we haven't done. Oh, Dan, I can't give you success, but I will allow you to do it next time you come on Wednesday. There you go. Boom. Colleen. So Diane, I'm going to give you access to success so you can do it on Wednesday next week. Yeah, really appreciate all of you joining. Starting next week, we are probably going to do this at 1 p.m. Eastern on Wednesdays. So instead of 6 p.m., instead of having you all stay up past your workday, we're actually going to move this into the workday. So I'm super excited about that. I'm super excited to make this more accessible both to Europeans and to you all to bring it into your workday. I do encourage you all to add bit.ly/AATT-calendar and the reason is that is always up to date. So when I make a decision, whether it's going to be 1 p.m. Eastern or 3 p.m. Eastern on Wednesdays, that calendar is always going to reflect the latest. If you're curious of like who's coming when, you can go to aatt.io/calendar, which has all of that information. And soon enough, starting tomorrow, I think, or on Thursday or on Friday, you're going to be able to add specific links, specific events to your calendar, whether it's a Google Calendar or an Outlook calendar. Just click and say, hey, I just want to have a calendar invite for this specific stream that's coming up. So yeah, should I keep doing these What's New in Airtable? I was thinking of doing them once a month. So let me know if this was good, if you found this interesting, and if I should keep doing them. Thanks, Colleen. Thanks, Mike. Awesome. Yeah, definitely. I'll maybe every month. I think that might be sufficient. I can kind of go back through things I haven't done before. Yeah. All right, Diane. Appreciate the feedback. Yeah, would love to do this on a monthly basis. I think that would be a good kind of sequence, and always happy to suggest whatever you guys want me to show, whether it's What's New in Airtable or otherwise. Let me know, and I'm always happy to cover it. With that, huge thanks to you all for joining. I will see you on Wednesday at a new time, hopefully a more convenient time, and I really appreciate y'all coming. Have a good one. Bye, everyone.